I'm Hope Logan. I am an actor on Bold and the Beautiful, and many people really love both me and our Bold and the Beautiful drama. So I've come here to share updates about my beloved Bold and the Beautiful. Everyone, please subscribe and support me. If you do, I will keep coming every day with new updates for you. Right now, there's a growing storm of frustration swirling around the Bold and the Beautiful, and it's not hard to see why. Viewers who have followed these characters for years are finding themselves increasingly irritated, even exhausted, by a stack of storylines that seem to circle endlessly without ever truly landing. From the sharp, off-putting edge of R.J. Forrester's personality shift to the strange disappearance of emotional closure for Taylor Hayes, the show feels like it's drifting rather than driving forward. Fans across social media echo the same sentiment day after day, their patience wearing thin, as scenes replay the same emotional beats with little progress. It's not just one storyline drawing criticism, but a collection of tangled arcs involving Elektra Forrester, Will Spencer, and others, all caught in a frustrating loop of miscommunication and repetition. What should feel like rising tension instead feels like standing still, as if time itself has paused within the world of the show. And as the days pass, viewers are left wondering when, or if, the momentum will return. At the center of this stagnation lies the drawn-out and deeply flawed storyline involving Elektra and Will, a situation that could have unraveled in moments if anyone had simply chosen honesty over silence. Elektra's behavior, marked by emotional distance and a surprising lack of empathy, paints a picture that feels inconsistent and, at times, hard to accept. She claims friendship, yet shows little concern for someone struggling so deeply. And her refusal to truly listen when Will tries to defend himself only widens the emotional gap between them. The truth about Ivy's deception lingers just out of reach, not because it's hidden, but because no one seems willing to speak plainly or hear the full story. Conversations repeat with eerie familiarity, scenes echoing each other almost word for word as if trapped in a loop. Episodes pass, yet the timeline barely shifts. Characters wear the same clothes, stand in the same rooms, and revisit the same arguments. It creates a strange, suspended reality where nothing evolves, and every step forward feels painfully delayed. Adding to the frustration is the baffling transformation of Ivy Forrester, a character once appreciated for her grounded presence, but now reshaped into something almost unrecognizable. Her constant fixation on what is proper feels forced, as though a new personality has been written over the old without explanation or care. The warmth and relatability that once defined her have been replaced by rigid control and intrusive behavior, particularly in how she manipulates Elektra. Instead of bringing depth or intrigue, her actions feel exaggerated, even uncomfortable, as she inserts herself into situations where she no longer belongs. The storyline stretches thin as Ivy lingers without remorse, her motivations unclear and her presence increasingly unwelcome. What could have been a meaningful return for a familiar face instead becomes a missed opportunity, leaving viewers questioning why she was brought back at all. The disconnect between who she was and who she is now becomes impossible to ignore, breaking the emotional continuity that longtime fans once cherished. Meanwhile, RJ's arc unfolds like a slow unraveling of what used to be a likable character, transforming him into someone viewers struggle to root for. His initial promise, a chance to rise above the legacy of conflict between families, fades almost instantly as he falls into the same patterns he once rejected. His pursuit of Elektra, despite her relationship with Will, casts a shadow over his intentions, making his actions feel selfish rather than romantic. Even the guidance of Brooke Logan fails to redirect him, as he doubles down on choices that alienate both characters and viewers alike. The disconnect becomes almost jarring when he speaks of hardship to someone who has faced real struggle, revealing a lack of awareness that only deepens the divide. Online reactions grow sharper, filled with disbelief and frustration, as fans struggle to recognize the character they once knew. It's not the performance that falters, but the writing itself, shaping RJ into a figure that feels out of sync with the heart of the show. And as his storyline continues, the question lingers: can he be rebuilt into someone worth rooting for again? Elsewhere, a different kind of disappointment takes hold in the unresolved tension between Taylor and Deacon Sharp, a relationship that seemed poised for a powerful breakthrough, but instead fades into uncertainty. Their moments together hinted at something real, something long awaited, yet each time they approached a turning point, they were pulled back. The looming presence of Sheila Carter added a layer of danger, transforming what could have been a romantic culmination into a suspenseful interruption. A knife, a smirk, a promise to return. Then suddenly, nothing. The storyline vanishes, leaving behind unanswered questions and a sense of incompletion that lingers long after the scenes end. Viewers are left imagining what should have happened, the emotional confession, the moment of connection, the sense of closure that never came. Instead, the relationship is placed quietly on hold, as though its importance has been forgotten. And in that silence, the anticipation that once surrounded them slowly begins to fade. At the same time, two of the show's most central figures, Steffi Forrester and Hope Logan, drift in and out of the narrative like shadows of their former prominence. Their stories, once rich with emotional depth and high-stakes drama, now feel sidelined, reduced to brief appearances that serve other plots rather than their own. Hope's reconciliation with Liam Spencer holds the promise of a new chapter, yet that chapter remains largely unseen, unfolding somewhere off-screen. Steffi's presence, too, feels fragmented, appearing only in fleeting moments that fail to capture the complexity she once brought to the story. Fans notice the absence, their voices rising with a mix of confusion and frustration as they ask where these characters have gone. The emotional core of the show seems to shift away from the figures who once defined it, leaving behind a sense of imbalance. And while new faces take the spotlight, the absence of these familiar anchors creates a void that is hard to ignore. In the end, what emerges is not just a critique of individual storylines, but a broader concern about direction and focus. There is a clear effort to spotlight younger characters, to draw in a new generation of viewers, but that effort comes at a cost when it sidelines the very characters who built the show's legacy. The balance feels off, the pacing uneven, and the emotional payoff often missing where it matters most. Longtime fans aren't asking for less change, they're asking for meaningful progression, for stories that move forward and characters that remain true to who they are. Until that balance is restored, the frustration will likely continue to build, echoing across every episode and every conversation among viewers. And somewhere beneath it all remains the hope that The Bold and the Beautiful will find its rhythm again, rediscovering the emotional depth and storytelling power that once made it impossible to look away. As this wave of dissatisfaction continues to ripple through the audience, there's an undeniable sense that the show has lost its sense of urgency, its heartbeat slowing to a near standstill while viewers wait for something, anything, to truly change. Scenes that should crackle with tension instead feel weighed down by repetition, as if the characters themselves are trapped in a loop they cannot escape. The same conversations resurface again and again, each one echoing the last with only the slightest variation, draining the impact from moments that should feel decisive. Even the visual cues reinforce this stillness, with characters appearing in the same outfits across multiple episodes, quietly confirming that time within the story has barely moved at all. It creates a surreal viewing experience where days pass for the audience, but only hours seem to pass on screen, stretching single moments into something far longer than they were ever meant to be. And with each repeated exchange, the emotional stakes that once defined the show begin to lose their edge, replaced by a lingering sense of déjà vu. The frustration deepens when these stalled storylines are padded further with unnecessary flashbacks, moments pulled from the past that interrupt rather than enhance the present. Instead of adding layers or context, they often feel like placeholders, extending scenes that are already struggling to move forward. What could have been a tightly woven narrative instead unravels into something sluggish, where progress comes in tiny, almost imperceptible increments. For viewers who tune in daily, the experience becomes increasingly exhausting, as if they are watching the same episode unfold under slightly different lighting. And yet, beneath that frustration lies a deeper disappointment. The sense that the show is capable of so much more, that these characters deserve stories with momentum, clarity, and purpose. It's not just about what's happening on screen, but what isn't happening, the missed opportunities that linger just out of reach. At the heart of it all, the issue isn't simply flawed plots or unpopular character choices. It's the absence of payoff, the lack of those defining moments that make a story feel complete. Relationships are introduced, tensions are built, but the emotional climaxes that should follow often dissolve before they can fully form. The near romance between Taylor Hayes and Deacon Sharp is a perfect example of this, a storyline that teased something meaningful only to leave it unresolved and quietly forgotten. Similarly, the conflict surrounding Electra Forrester and Will Spencer continues to simmer without ever truly boiling over into clarity or resolution. These are stories that demand turning points, moments where truths are revealed and choices are made. Yet those moments remain frustratingly out of reach. And without them, the narrative begins to feel incomplete, like a sentence that never quite reaches its final word. Meanwhile, the imbalance between generations becomes more apparent with every passing episode, as newer characters take center stage while established figures fade into the background. The absence of strong, ongoing arcs for Steffi Forrester and Hope Logan leaves a noticeable gap, one that newer storylines struggle to fill. These are characters who have carried the emotional weight of the show for years, whose journeys have been built through conflict, growth, and deeply personal stakes. To see them reduced to occasional appearances or commentary roles feels like a disservice not only to the characters, but to the audience that has invested in them for so long. Even moments that should feel intimate and meaningful, like Hope's renewed life with Liam Spencer or Steffi's relationship with Finn, are reduced to brief glimpses, lacking the depth and continuity that once defined their stories. It's as if entire chapters of their lives are unfolding off-screen, leaving viewers to piece together what they can from scattered scenes. And still, beneath all the criticism, there remains a lingering sense of hope, a belief that the show can find its way back to what made it compelling in the first place. Because at its core, The Bold and the Beautiful has always thrived on emotional intensity, on characters who feel real, and stories that push them to their limits. The ingredients are still there, the history, the relationships, the potential for drama that resonates, but they need to be brought together with intention and care. Fans aren't asking for perfection, but for progression, for narratives that move forward and reward their patience with meaningful development. They want to feel the tension build and then break, to see characters face consequences and grow from them, to experience the kind of storytelling that keeps them coming back day after day. Until then, the frustration will continue to simmer, carried through every repeated conversation and every unresolved plotline. But if the show can rediscover its rhythm, if it can once again balance its past with its future, there's still time for it to reclaim the magic that once made it unforgettable. And perhaps the most striking thing about all of this is how close the show still feels to getting it right. As if just beneath the surface of these stalled plots lies the version of The Bold and the Beautiful that viewers remember and love. You can almost see it in fleeting moments. The brief flashes of chemistry, the hints of conflict that promise something bigger, the quiet scenes where emotion nearly breaks through the repetition. But those moments rarely get the time or follow-through they need to truly resonate, fading just as quickly as they appear. It creates a strange push and pull for the audience, where hope rises for a second before being pulled back into the same cycle of unresolved tension. And over time, that cycle begins to wear down even the most loyal viewers, leaving them caught between nostalgia for what once was and frustration with what currently is. The show hasn't lost its foundation, but it feels like it's struggling to build anything new on top of it. And that struggle is becoming more visible with every passing episode. There's also a growing disconnect between character motivation and character behavior, a subtle but powerful shift that makes it harder to emotionally invest in what's unfolding. When RJ Forrester acts in ways that feel inconsistent with his past, or when Ivy Forrester suddenly embodies traits that were never part of her identity before, it breaks the illusion that these are fully realized, evolving people. Instead, they begin to feel like pieces being moved to serve a plot, rather than individuals driving the story forward. That shift may seem small at first, but over time it erodes the emotional connection that keeps audiences invested. Because in a show built on relationships, on history, on deeply rooted character dynamics, authenticity is everything. And when that authenticity starts to slip, even the most dramatic twists can feel hollow. The audience doesn't just want surprises, they want those surprises to feel earned, grounded in the characters they've come to know over years of storytelling. At the same time, the show's pacing continues to hover in this uneasy space between slow burn and complete stagnation, never quite finding the balance that keeps a narrative engaging. A slow burn can be powerful when it builds towards something meaningful, when each moment adds tension and brings the story closer to its turning point. But here, that progression often feels interrupted, stretched out without clear direction, leaving viewers waiting for a payoff that never quite arrives. The situation with Electra Forrester and Will Spencer continues to linger in that uncertain space, where resolution feels both inevitable and endlessly delayed. Conversations circle back on themselves, misunderstandings remain unresolved, and the emotional stakes that should be rising instead feel frozen in place. It's a delicate balance, and right now, the show seems to be leaning too heavily on delay without delivering the payoff that makes that delay worthwhile. Yet even as these issues persist, there's an undeniable awareness among viewers of what could be, of the stories that are just waiting to be told if only the show would let them unfold. The potential for powerful arcs is still there, whether it's revisiting the emotional depth of Steffi Forrester and Hope Logan, giving them the space to lead once again, or finally delivering the long-awaited resolutions that have been hovering over multiple storylines. There's a hunger for moments that feel definitive, for scenes that change everything rather than resetting back to the same starting point. Viewers want to see relationships evolve, conflicts reach their breaking point, and characters face the consequences of their choices in ways that feel real and lasting. It's not about abandoning the current direction, but about strengthening it, giving it the structure and momentum it needs to truly come alive. In the end, what lingers most is not just the frustration, but the sense of anticipation that refuses to completely fade. Because for all its current missteps, The Bold and the Beautiful still carries the legacy of a show that knows how to deliver unforgettable drama when it chooses to. The audience hasn't turned away, they're still watching, still reacting, still hoping for that moment when everything clicks back into place. And when that moment comes, if the stories begin to move with purpose again, if the characters rediscover their authenticity and the pacing finds its rhythm, the impact could be just as powerful as ever. Until then, the tension remains, not just within the storylines themselves, but between the show and its viewers, both waiting for the same thing: a reason to believe again.